Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've always loved the woods. There's a peace there, something raw and honest, that no city or town could ever offer. When I was younger, I would hike those trails every weekend, without fail. The air was always fresh, the trees always tall, and the ground soft beneath my boots. There was a familiarity to it, a comfort like visiting an old friend. This trail, the Pine Trail, they called it, was my favorite. I've been walking it for years, and never once did it disappoint. That day, though, was different. It started out like any other. The sky was clear, no clouds to block the sun, which filtered through the tall pines above, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Birds chirped in the distance. The gentle rustling of leaves whispered in the breeze. It was the perfect day for a hike, or at least that's what I thought. I walked for about an hour, breathing in the scent of pine and earth, my boots crunching along the packed dirt. I was used to the rhythm, the steady beat of my footsteps, the comfort of knowing exactly what to expect. But then, something changed, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I noticed the silence first. It wasn't immediate, but it was unmistakable when I realized it. The usual sounds of the woods, the birds, the breeze, the rustling leaves, had stopped. The only noise now was the sound of my own footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The air felt heavy, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a little uneasy. I shook my head. It's nothing, I thought, just the way the wind's blowing today. I carried on, telling myself it was nothing, that I was just being silly. But then I heard it, a whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind, but no, it was too deliberate. The wind was dead still, yet the whispering continued, faint at first, like a voice carried on the breeze. I stopped walking, straining my ears to catch the words, but there were none, just that low, eerie murmur, like someone was trying to speak, but couldn't quite get the words out. I called out, almost reflexively, thinking maybe someone else was out here, just a little farther off the trail. "Hello," I said, trying to keep the unease from creeping into my voice. No answer. The whispering grew louder, but still, I couldn't make out what it was saying. My heart began to beat a little faster, and I instinctively looked over my shoulder, as if expecting someone to be standing behind me. But the woods were empty, still, silent, save for the strange whispering that had now woven itself into the very fabric of the air around me. Then something happened that made my blood run cold. The trees began to shift. I swear to God, I saw it. At first, it was just a subtle movement, a twitch of a branch, like it was being stirred by the wind. But there was no wind, no breeze, no reason for those trees to move. Yet they did, slowly, like the creaking bones of something old and tired. The branches began to bend, to groan, to sway in unnatural ways. I stood frozen, watching in disbelief. The whispering continued, growing more distinct, more insistent. The words still eluded me, but the tone, it was as if whatever was speaking knew me, knew everything about me. A sense of deep familiarity settled in my stomach, but it wasn't the kind of familiarity that made me feel safe. No, it was the kind that made my skin crawl, that made every muscle in my body tense in preparation for something horrible. And then, just as quickly as it had started, it stopped. The trees ceased moving. The whispering died away into nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. I took a slow, cautious step forward. My heart was still racing in my chest, the sound of my breath louder in my ears than the air around me. My feet felt heavy, like they were being weighed down by something invisible. I took another step, and then I heard it again. This time, the whispering wasn't far off. It wasn't distant at all. It was right next to me. Close. Too close. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the trees. The same trees I'd walked past countless times. The same trail. The same damn woods. But everything was different now. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suffocating. The air felt thick with something I couldn't name, something pressing down on me. I didn't wait to hear the whispering again. I turned and bolted down the trail, my heart hammering against my rib cage, my legs pushing harder, faster, desperate to get away. The forest felt like it was closing in on me. I couldn't see anything, just trees, trees, and more trees, the shadows growing longer, darker with every step. But I could feel it, feel the weight of something behind me, something watching, something that wasn't quite human. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like they were going to give out beneath me. And when I finally broke through the tree line, when I finally saw the open fields and the distant road, I looked back. The woods were still, silent once more, but I swear I saw something in the trees. Movement, shadows, something that didn't belong. Eyes, watching me. And just like that, I knew. I knew I wasn't welcome there anymore. I haven't been back to those woods since. Not once. But sometimes when the wind picks up, when I'm walking down the street on a quiet evening, I hear it. The faintest of whispers, like a memory, just beyond my reach. And I know without a doubt that whatever I felt in those woods, it's still there, waiting, watching, and one day I might hear that whisper again. Story 2. I've always been one of those people who finds peace in the woods. The deep, dark silence of it all. The way the trees stretch up so high you can barely see the sky. Their branches tangling together like the fingers of ancient hands. There's something comforting about it. Something that makes me feel small, and yet somehow whole. So, when my friend Matt invited me to join him for a weekend camping trip in some remote woods, I didn't hesitate. I packed my gear, grabbed some snacks, and was out the door without a second thought. We drove for hours, leaving behind the hum of the city, the constant drone of traffic, and the incessant buzz of modern life. It felt good. The air smelled cleaner out there, crisper, the kind of air you can almost taste in your lungs. By the time we reached the campsite, the sun was just starting to dip below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the forest floor. We set up camp quickly. Tents were pitched, the fire was roaring, and for a while it felt like the kind of perfect, peaceful evening you see in travel brochures. Matt and I talked about everything, life, work, the usual nonsense, while the fire crackled between us. The wind rustled the leaves above, but otherwise, the woods were still, silent, the kind of silence that can only come from being miles away from civilization. At some point, we fell quiet. Maybe it was the fire or the way the woods seemed to breathe with us. But we just sat there, staring into the flames. I felt good. Maybe even better than good. But then, I don't know when exactly, but it hit me. I felt it. The hairs on the back of my neck standing up. The way your skin tingles when someone's eyes are on you, but you can't see them. I glanced around, but the woods were empty. The trees swayed gently in the wind, their shadows stretching long across the ground. No animals, no insects buzzing around, just the fire and the oppressive silence. Still, that feeling lingered, like something was watching me. I shook it off. I wasn't some kid spooked by shadows. This was the woods, after all. That's just how they were. The trees can mess with your mind if you let them. But then again, maybe it was just the isolation. That can mess with your head, too. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was nothing. I stood up, stretched, and went back into my tent to settle down for the night. I didn't tell Matt about the weird feeling. There was no point. But the rest of the night didn't feel as peaceful as it had been before. I couldn't shake it off, that sense of being watched. So I pulled the sleeping bag up over my head, closed my eyes, and forced myself to sleep. It wasn't until a few hours later that I woke up. The night was deep, the fire long since reduced to embers, casting only faint shadows outside the tent. It was the quiet that woke me. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where you can't even hear the wind anymore. I don't know how to explain it, but the stillness felt wrong, almost unnatural. I lay there, my heart pounding a little faster now. That same sensation, being watched, was back, stronger this time. And then I heard it, a sound, not the normal rustling of the woods or the calls of distant animals, but something wet, slimy, the soft, sticky sound of something moving, crawling. My breath caught in my throat. I froze. For a moment, I just listened. It was coming from beneath me, from under the tent. I could hear the wet squelch of something slithering, crawling, like it was burrowing through the earth itself. I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone. The sound continued, slow and deliberate, inching closer to me. I felt the panic rising, but still I couldn't move. I didn't even want to look. But curiosity, a terrible, awful curiosity, forced me to lift the corner of the tent. What I saw made my stomach drop. The ground beneath me was moving, slowly, as if some dark, living thing was pushing through the dirt. A thick, dark mass, like moss, was spreading across the earth. It wasn't the normal moss you see in the woods. This wasn't green and soft. No, this was black. It was crawling beneath the dirt, twisting and turning, like it had a mind of its own. And it wasn't stopping. I grabbed my flashlight, my hand shaking as I shone at the ground. The light cut through the darkness, illuminating something far worse than I could have imagined. Beneath the moss, buried beneath it, were hands. Human hands, half-rotted, fingers stiff with decay, their nails still clawing desperately at the earth. It was as though the moss was feeding off whatever had been buried there, as though it had been feeding for years. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, but the sound got stuck in my throat. I shook Matt awake, my voice a hoarse whisper as I tried to explain, but when we looked, there was nothing. No moss, no hands, just the dirt. Nothing out of place. Matt laughed it off, thinking I had dreamed it. But I knew what I'd seen. I knew it wasn't a dream. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I spent the rest of the night staring into the darkness, wondering if whatever was beneath the ground would come back for me. Every little rustle of the wind, every soft crackle of a branch made my heart leap into my throat. By morning, the sun had risen, but the woods still felt wrong. The air was too thick, too heavy, and when I looked down at the ground, I swore I saw the moss moving again. Just beneath the surface, the earth shifting, but when I blinked, it was gone, like it had never been there at all. I packed up my things quickly, my hands trembling as I stuffed my gear into the bag. I couldn't leave fast enough. Matt kept asking me if I was okay, but I couldn't look him in the eye. He wouldn't understand. As we drove away from the campsite, I took one last look out the rearview mirror. The woods were still. The trees stood tall, casting long shadows across the road. But just for a moment, just a brief, fleeting moment, I thought I saw something. Something moving beneath the dirt. Something trying to escape. I don't know what it was. I don't think I want to know. But the next time someone invites me to camp in the woods, I'll be the first to decline, because some things are better left buried. Story 3. I've spent my entire life in the woods. My father was a tracker, a hunter, a man who understood the forest in a way that most people would never be able to. From the time I was old enough to walk, he took me with him on every hunt, every trek through the thick woods that surrounded our home. He taught me to read the signs, the way the trees leaned, the way the animals moved, the subtle shifts in the wind. But none of that ever prepared me for what happened when I ventured out on my own, deeper into the forest than I had ever gone before. It was a cool morning, the kind that makes your breath puff out in little clouds. The smell of pine and damp earth filled the air, familiar and comforting. I had been planning this hunt for weeks. I was going to go farther than I ever had before, deeper into the heart of the woods, where the game was plentiful and the quiet was absolute. I wanted to prove to myself that I was ready to stand on my own, without my father's guidance. The first few hours passed like any other hunt, quiet, patient, methodical. The forest seemed alive with its usual sounds. Birds sang, squirrels rustled in the trees, and the breeze whispered through the branches. But as I moved deeper, I noticed a strange shift. The trees here were older, thicker, their trunks gnarled and twisted. The sunlight barely made it through the canopy. It was like the forest had a weight to it, a heaviness that made everything feel a little off. But I brushed it off. It was just the deep woods, I told myself. The place where things got darker, quieter, and wilder. But then, as I walked, I started to see things. Figures darting in and out of the shadows, just at the edge of my vision. I told myself it was just my imagination. The forest had a way of playing tricks on you, especially when you were alone. But the longer I walked, the more it felt like I wasn't alone. I wasn't sure what it was at first, a flicker of movement here, a shift in the underbrush there. Just the wind, I thought, or maybe a deer. Then I heard it, a snap, a twig breaking underfoot. It was loud, sharp, and it came from behind me. I froze, my heart thudding in my chest. My hand instinctively went to the rifle slung over my shoulder. I spun around, ready to face whatever was following me. But there was nothing, just the trees, their branches swaying slightly in the breeze. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling stayed. I couldn't get rid of it. The feeling that I was being watched followed, that something was moving through the trees just beyond my sight. I pressed on, faster now. I couldn't shake the feeling, and every step I took seemed to make the forest grow quieter, darker, more oppressive. I didn't dare look behind me again. I couldn't. The air around me was thick, charged with something I couldn't name. Then, I heard it again, this time closer. A heavy footstep, not the light, delicate steps of an animal, but something heavier. The sound of something large, something human, maybe, or something else. I picked up the pace, my breath coming quicker. My heart was hammering now. My eyes darted around, searching the shadows, but I saw nothing. Still, the sound of footsteps grew louder, closer, and then I heard something else, breathing, deep, ragged breaths. It wasn't the steady breathing of a man or animal, but something more primal, more guttural, something that didn't belong in the woods. I couldn't explain it, but my instincts kicked in. I ran. I don't even know how I got my legs moving, but suddenly I was sprinting through the trees, the sound of those heavy footsteps behind me echoing in my ears. The breathing was so loud now, so close, it felt like it was right on my neck. The air felt thick, the ground beneath my feet uneven, but I couldn't stop. I had to get away. I had to. I tripped. My foot caught on something, an exposed root or a rock, I'm not sure. And I went down hard, my rifle flying out of my hands. I scrambled to my feet, my fingers trembling as I tried to reach for it. But as I looked up, I froze. It was there, standing in the shadows, just beyond the clearing. It watched me. A figure, tall, unnaturally tall, its body hidden in the dark, but its eyes glowed. A faint, yellow light, like a predator's eyes, watching me, unblinking. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. For a moment, I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me, that I was just seeing things, but then it moved, slowly, deliberately, the way a predator moves when it knows it's being hunted. I backed away, my legs weak beneath me, my hands still searching for the rifle. But the figure didn't approach. It just stood there, watching me, its eyes never leaving mine. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it disappeared back into the shadows. I didn't wait to see if it would come back. I didn't stop running until I reached the edge of the woods. When I finally stumbled out of the trees, I thought I was safe. I thought it was over. But even then, as I loaded my gear into the truck, I heard it. The soft thud of footsteps behind me. Too soft to be the wind. Too deliberate to be an animal. I didn't look. I didn't dare. I drove home as fast as I could, my hands white-knuckling the steering wheel. And as I drove, the sound of those footsteps followed me. The thing in the woods is still out there, and it's waiting for me. I know it is. I can't explain what I saw, but I know this. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was something else, something that belonged in the shadows. I never went back to those woods. Not alone. Not ever again. But sometimes, when the night is still and the forest is silent, I swear I can hear it. The sound of those footsteps, just beyond the edge of my vision, waiting. And I know it's still out there, waiting for me to come back.